Hannah Pierce's mornings were her favorite part of the day. The soft glow of the sunrise over Savannah cast a golden hue across the sprawling fields near her house, painting the wildflowers in shades of amber and violet. Toby, her loyal golden retriever, bounded happily ahead, chasing after the occasional bird or butterfly that dared to cross his path. These walks were her sanctuary, a quiet reprieve from the chaos of the world. They gave her time to think, to reflect, and sometimes to simply exist. It was a routine she cherished, a small but vital comfort in a life that, while fulfilling, often felt incomplete. Hannah's veterinary clinic, nestled in the heart of town, was a cozy, welcoming space. The walls were adorned with photographs of her patients, dogs with wagging tails, cats mid-stretch, even the occasional hamster or parrot. She had built this place from the ground up, pouring her heart and soul into every detail. Yet as she leaned against the counter, absently stroking Toby's fur while he lounged at her feet, Hannah couldn't ignore the pang of loneliness that lingered in the back of her mind. She had built a good life for herself, but the walls of her world sometimes felt too quiet. After her last relationship ended in heartbreak, she had sworn off love. It was safer this way, focusing on her work, on Toby, and on the simple joys of her small-town life. Meanwhile, Olivia Carter was experiencing a very different kind of morning. Her new office in Savannah was a stark contrast to the sleek skyscrapers she was accustomed to in New York. It was smaller, more rustic, with large windows that let in the Georgia sunlight. But Olivia wasn't one to dwell on aesthetics. Her mind was fixed on the task ahead, overseeing the ambitious revitalization project that had brought her to Savannah. Her team was already hard at work reviewing blueprints and zoning plans. Olivia's attention to detail was legendary. She had built her career on her ability to anticipate problems and solve them before they arose. "Carter, we need your input on the layout for the Central Plaza," one of her assistants called from across the room. "Coming," Olivia replied, glancing at the stack of paperwork on her desk before grabbing her tablet. Her career was her life and she liked it that way. Relationships were a distraction, a risk she wasn't willing to take. She had seen too many colleagues lose focus, let emotions cloud their judgment. That wasn't going to be her. The worlds of Hannah Pierce and Olivia Carter collided one warm afternoon on a quiet country road. Olivia had decided to take a drive outside the city, hoping the scenery would inspire her for the project. Her rental car hummed along the winding road, the landscape a blur of green and gold. Then out of nowhere a dog darted across the road. Olivia slammed on the brakes, her heart leaping into her throat as the car skidded to a stop. She sat frozen for a moment, her hands gripping the steering wheel, her chest heaving with adrenaline. The dog lay motionless on the side of the road. "Oh my God," Olivia whispered, fumbling with her seatbelt before rushing out of the car. The dog, a scruffy medium-sized mutt with patches of gray and brown, whimpered softly but was still breathing. Olivia's panic deepened. She had no idea what to do. Her phone trembled in her hand as she searched for the nearest veterinary clinic. Her pulse quickened when she saw the location, just a few miles down the road. Hannah was finishing up an appointment with a tabby cat named Mr. Whiskers when the clinic door flew open. A woman with sharp features and an air of urgency entered, cradling an injured dog in her arms. Her dark hair was slightly disheveled, her tailored blouse wrinkled, and her expression a mix of panic and guilt. "Please," the woman said, her voice breaking slightly. "I hit him with my car. I didn't see him." Hannah sprang into action, her calm demeanor instantly putting Olivia at ease. "Bring him here," Hannah said, guiding Olivia to an examination table. As Hannah began examining the dog, her voice gentle and reassuring, Olivia couldn't help but notice the warmth in her eyes, the quiet confidence in her movements. "Is he going to be okay?" Olivia asked, her voice trembling. "He's stable," Hannah replied, her tone soothing. "He has a fractured leg but nothing life-threatening. You got him here just in time." Olivia exhaled, relief washing over her. "Thank God." Hannah glanced at her, offering a small, reassuring smile. "You did the right thing bringing him here." For a moment their eyes met and something unspoken passed between them, a connection neither of them expected. Over the next hour, as Hannah treated the dog and explained his recovery plan, Olivia found herself drawn to the veterinarian's quiet strength. There was a kindness in her that was rare, a gentleness that made Olivia feel oddly at ease despite the circumstances. As Olivia prepared to leave, she hesitated. Thank you for everything, she said, her voice softer than usual. Hannah smiled, her gaze steady. He'll need a name, you know. Olivia blinked, surprised. A name? For the records, Hannah said with a playful glint in her eye. Olivia considered this for a moment before answering. Max. His name is Max. Hannah nodded, scribbling the name onto a form. Max it is. As Olivia walked out of the clinic, a strange feeling settled in her chest, one she couldn't quite name. And Hannah, watching her go, couldn't help but feel the same. The jingling of the clinic's doorbell startled Hannah as she organized patient files at the front desk. It wasn't unusual for walk-ins, but the sound of hurried footsteps and the strained voice that followed told her this was no ordinary visit. Excuse me, I need help, please. Hannah looked up to see a woman standing in the doorway, cradling an injured dog. The woman's dark hair was slightly disheveled, her tailored shirt smudged with dirt, and her expression was a mix of panic and guilt. Over here, Hannah said quickly, gesturing to an examination table. Her calm but firm tone immediately took control of the chaos. The woman nodded, rushing over and gently placing the dog down. I didn't see him in time, she said, her voice trembling. He just ran out onto the road. Hannah's focus shifted to the dog, a scruffy, medium-sized mutt with patches of gray and brown. He whimpered softly, his left leg bent at an awkward angle. Hannah's practiced hands moved over him, assessing the damage. What's his name? Hannah asked without looking up, her voice steady. The woman blinked, caught off guard. I don't know. He's not mine. Hannah met her eyes for the first time, offering a small, reassuring smile. That's okay. Let's get him stabilized first. The dog whimpered as Hannah palpated his injured leg, her gentle hands calming him. Olivia, Hannah had caught her name during a hurried introduction, stood close by, her arms crossed tightly as if holding herself together. Is he going to be okay? Olivia asked, her voice quieter now but no less tense. Hannah glanced up, meeting Olivia's worried gaze. He's stable, she said softly. It looks like he has a fractured leg, but his vitals are strong. You got him here just in time. Olivia exhaled shakily, relief flooding her expression. Thank God. Hannah couldn't help but notice the raw emotion in Olivia's voice. The way her usually composed demeanor seemed to crack under the weight of guilt. You did the right thing bringing him here, Hannah said, her tone reassuring. We'll take care of him. Olivia nodded, her shoulders relaxing slightly. Thank you, she murmured, her voice almost inaudible. As Hannah worked, Olivia lingered nearby, watching as the veterinarian moved with practiced ease. There was a calm efficiency in Hannah's every action. The way she murmured soothing words to the dog as she splinted his leg, the careful attention she gave to cleaning his wounds. Does this happen often? Olivia asked, breaking the silence. Hannah chuckled softly. Stray animals getting into trouble? All the time. You'd be surprised how resourceful they can be. Olivia tilted her head, her lips curving into a faint smile. You don't seem fazed by it. It's part of the job, Hannah replied, her eyes flicking up to meet Olivia's. And I love what I do. The sincerity in her voice struck Olivia. There was something undeniably magnetic about Hannah, a warmth and steadiness that felt both grounding and disarming. With the immediate care complete, Hannah turned back to Olivia, wiping her hands on her scrubs. He'll need some time to recover, but he's going to be okay. Olivia let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. That's good. That's really good. Hannah studied her for a moment. You're not from around here, are you? Olivia shook her head, a small laugh escaping her lips. Is it that obvious? A little, Hannah said, a playful glint in her eyes. The designer heels are a giveaway. Olivia glanced down at her scuffed shoes, a faint blush creeping into her cheeks. Right. I wasn't exactly planning for this. Hannah smiled, a genuine, easy expression that made something inside Olivia stir. Life has a way of surprising you. As Olivia prepared to leave, Hannah handed her a form to fill out. For the records, Hannah explained. We need a name for him. Olivia hesitated, looking down at the dog, who was now resting comfortably in the recovery area. Max, she said finally. Let's call him Mac. Max it is, Hannah replied, jotting the name down. Olivia lingered by the door, her fingers brushing against the strap of her purse. Thank you again. For everything. Hannah nodded, her voice gentle. It's what I'm here for. And don't worry, I'll keep you updated on his recovery. For a moment their eyes met and the air between them seemed to shift. There was something unspoken in the glance they exchanged. A spark of connection that neither of them fully understood but couldn't ignore. Take care, Olivia, Hannah said finally, her voice soft but steady. Olivia gave a small nod before stepping outside, the cool evening air brushing against her skin. As she walked to her car, she glanced back at the clinic, a strange feeling blooming in her chest. She couldn't quite name it, but she knew one thing for certain. She wouldn't forget Hannah Pierce anytime soon. And inside the clinic, Hannah stood by the window watching Olivia drive away. For the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of something she hadn't allowed herself to feel. Hope. Olivia returned to the clinic the very next day, her expression a mix of determination and unease. She told herself she was there for Max, to ensure he was getting the care he needed. But the memory of Hannah's calm voice and warm smile lingered in her mind longer than she cared to admit. Hannah greeted Olivia at the reception desk, her demeanor as collected as ever. Toby, Hannah's golden retriever, wagged his tail enthusiastically beside her, sensing a new visitor to charm. Good morning, Hannah said, her voice soft but welcoming. Max is doing well. He's a bit groggy from the sedatives, but he's already eating and responding to treatment. Olivia let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. That's a relief. Can I see him? Hannah smiled. Of course. Follow me. The recovery area was quiet, the hum of machines and the soft padding of Hannah's footsteps the only sounds. Max lay curled in a comfortable bed, his bandaged leg propped carefully on a cushion. His ears perked up when he saw Olivia, his tail thumping weakly against the blanket. Hey buddy, Olivia said, crouching down to stroke his fur. You're a fighter, aren't you? Hannah watched from the doorway, her arms crossed loosely. There was something endearing about the way Olivia spoke to Max, her polished exterior giving way to an unexpected warmth. You've got a knack for this, Hannah said lightly, stepping closer. For what? Olivia asked, glancing up. Connecting, Hannah replied, her tone genuine. Most people wouldn't take the time. But you care. Olivia straightened, brushing her hands on her slacks as if to regain her composure. I just feel responsible, she said, her voice quieter now. It's the least I can do after what happened. Hannah tilted her head, studying Olivia for a moment. It's more than that. But that's not a bad thing. As the days turned into weeks, Olivia became a regular fixture at the clinic. Her visits initially revolved around Max, checking on his progress, bringing him treats and sitting with him while he healed. But gradually, those visits extended into longer conversations with Hannah. At first the topics were simple. Olivia asked about Toby, who often lounged near Hannah's desk, his big brown eyes following Olivia with curiosity. He's a rescue, Hannah explained one afternoon, scratching behind Toby's ears. He came to me after a rough start, but he's been my shadow ever since. Olivia smiled, watching the bond between Hannah and her dog. He's lucky to have you. Hannah shrugged, a small smile playing on her lips. I think I'm the lucky one. Their conversations soon deepened, branching into unexpected territory. Hannah shared her love for nature, her passion for hiking the trails around Savannah, and the solace she found in the quiet beauty of the outdoors. It's my reset button, Hannah said one evening, sitting on the clinic's front steps as the sun dipped below the horizon. Out there everything feels simpler. It reminds me of what's important. Olivia listened intently, her usual guarded demeanor softening. I can't remember the last time I stopped to appreciate anything like that, she admitted. In my world it's all deadlines and blueprints. It feels relentless. Hannah looked at Olivia, her gaze steady but kind. Maybe you should try it sometime. You might surprise yourself. In turn, Hannah became fascinated by Olivia's drive and ambition. One afternoon, while they sat in the small break room with coffee mugs in hand, Olivia spoke about her work, the challenges of urban revitalization, the intricate balance of preserving history while making room for progress. It's not just about the buildings, Olivia said, her eyes alight with passion. It's about creating spaces where people feel connected, where communities can thrive. That's what drives me. Hannah couldn't hide her admiration. You talk about it like it's more than a job. Like it's a calling. Olivia hesitated, her expression softening. Maybe it is. I've always believed that what we create should mean something. Hannah smiled, a warmth spreading through her chest. That's a rare way to see the world. I like it. Their interactions became a rhythm, a new part of their routines. Hannah found herself looking forward to Olivia's visits, the sharp but sincere architect bringing a spark of something unexpected into her quiet days. Olivia, for her part, couldn't shake the way Hannah's calm presence made her feel grounded, understood, and for the first time in years truly seen. Neither of them said it aloud, but they both felt it. A connection that went beyond Max, beyond the clinic. It was something deeper, something neither of them had anticipated but couldn't ignore. And with each passing day the lines between their worlds blurred a little more. Hannah stared at the sleek invitation on her kitchen counter, her coffee mug warming her hands. The black and gold lettering announced the details of Olivia's project unveiling, an event designed to showcase the revitalization plans Olivia had spent weeks perfecting. Hannah traced the embossed edges of the card, her mind swirling with indecision. She wasn't one for grand events or polished crowds. Her world was quiet and simple. But the thought of seeing Olivia again, of watching her in her element, lingered like a whisper in her thoughts. Toby nudged her leg, pulling her from her reverie. "You think I should go, don't you?" she murmured, scratching his ears. He wagged his tail as if in agreement. With a sigh, Hannah set down her mug. For the first time in a long time she felt a pull toward someone, a pull she couldn't entirely ignore. The event was held in a restored industrial space downtown, its exposed brick walls and high ceilings lit with soft, warm lights. The crowd buzzed with excitement, a mix of city officials, designers, and local influencers mingling over champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Hannah felt out of place the moment she walked in. Her floral blouse and jeans, while neat, contrasted sharply with the tailored suits and cocktail dresses around her. She clutched her small purse tightly, scanning the room for Olivia. It didn't take long to spot her. Olivia stood near the stage, talking animatedly with a group of attendees. Her dark hair framed her face perfectly, and her sharp navy suit exuded confidence. There was a light in her eyes as she spoke, a passion that drew people in like a magnet. Hannah's breath caught. In that moment Olivia seemed untouchable, so poised, so sure of herself. A voice broke through her thoughts. "Miss Pierce, isn't it?" Hannah turned to find a man with a clipboard smiling at her. "Yes," she replied cautiously. "Olivia mentioned you might come. Follow me, she wanted you to have a good seat for the presentation." Hannah blinked, surprised. "Oh, I don't want to impose." "Nonsense," he said, gesturing for her to follow. Hannah allowed herself to be led closer to the stage, settling into a seat near the front. The lights dimmed moments later and Olivia took the stage. Hannah had seen glimpses of Olivia's passion during their conversations at the clinic, but watching her now was something entirely different. Olivia's voice was steady and assured as she walked the audience through her vision for Savannah's future. The plans were bold yet thoughtful, designs that balanced modernity with the town's historic charm. She spoke of creating spaces that fostered connection, of building a community that respected its roots while embracing progress. Her words resonated deeply with Hannah. There was an authenticity to Olivia's vision that made it clear she wasn't just pitching ideas. She believed in what she was doing. As the presentation ended, the room erupted in applause. Olivia's eyes swept the crowd, landing on Hannah for a brief moment. Their gazes locked and a flicker of something passed between them. A silent acknowledgement, a tether neither could explain. After the presentation, the room buzzed with activity as attendees mingled and congratulated Olivia. Hannah lingered by the edges of the crowd, unsure whether to stay or slip away unnoticed. But Olivia found her. "Hannah," Olivia said, her voice soft but carrying a weight of meaning. She looked slightly out of breath as though she'd hurried to catch her. "You were amazing," Hannah said, her voice sincere. "Thank you," Olivia replied, her gaze steady. Then, as if on impulse, she added, "Come with me." Before Hannah could protest, Olivia took her hand and led her through a side door, away from the clamor of the event. The cool night air hit them as they stepped onto a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The distant hum of Savannah's nightlife filled the silence, and the soft glow of streetlights painted Olivia's features in warm, golden tones. "I needed a moment," Olivia admitted, leaning against the railing. "It gets overwhelming sometimes." Hannah stood beside her, the warmth of Olivia's hand still lingering on her own. You seemed so confident up there, she said. Olivia let out a small laugh. It's all part of the act. Hannah turned to her, surprise flickering in her eyes. You don't seem like the kind of person who acts. Olivia met her gaze, something unguarded in her expression. Maybe not with you. The words hung between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Hannah's heart thudded in her chest as Olivia took a small step closer. I don't know what it is about you, Olivia said softly, her voice tinged with vulnerability. But since I met you, everything feels different. Hannah opened her mouth to respond, but the words caught in her throat. Before she could gather her thoughts, Olivia's hand brushed lightly against her arm. A touch so gentle yet electric, it sent shivers down her spine. Their eyes locked, and for a moment the rest of the world faded away. Olivia leaned in slowly, her intentions clear but tentative, giving Hannah every chance to pull away. Hannah didn't. Their lips met in a brief, delicate kiss, a meeting of uncertainty and longing, of questions and promises. When they pulled apart, the air between them felt charged, like the quiet after a storm. Olivia began, but her voice faltered. Hannah shook her head, a small, unsure smile tugging at her lips. Me too. For the first time in years she felt something stir inside her that she thought she'd buried forever. Hope. The gentle hum of the city murmured in the background as Hannah and Olivia stood on the balcony, bathed in the soft glow of Savannah's streetlights. A light breeze carried the scent of blooming magnolias, mingling with the faint aroma of champagne lingering from the event inside. Olivia leaned against the wrought iron railing, her posture unusually relaxed but her eyes clouded with something unresolved. She seemed lost in thought, her gaze flitting between the distant skyline and the woman standing beside her. Hannah, sensing the weight of the silence, hesitated before breaking it. You really were incredible tonight, she said softly, her voice carrying a sincerity that made Olivia turn to her fully. Thank you, Olivia replied, her lips curving into a faint, almost wistful smile. But I think I needed more than just your approval tonight. Hannah tilted her head, her brows knitting slightly. What do you mean? Olivia sighed, brushing a hand through her hair. Her usual air of control wavered, revealing something vulnerable beneath the surface. I'm not used to this, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Not used to feeling like this. Like what? Hannah asked, her chest tightening. Olivia's eyes searched hers, a flicker of hesitation crossing her face before she continued. Since I met you, everything feels different. I've been trying to ignore it, push it aside, but I can't. You've made me question everything I thought I knew about myself. Hannah's breath caught, her heart pounding in her chest. She opened her mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. Olivia's admission hung in the air, raw and exposed, leaving Hannah unsure of how to bridge the gap between them. Olivia stepped closer, her hand brushing against Hannah's arm. The touch was light, almost tentative, but it sent a spark coursing through Hannah's skin. Olivia's fingers lingered, tracing a gentle path up to Hannah's shoulder before she stopped, her hand resting there as if she were anchoring herself. I don't even know if this makes sense, Olivia murmured, her voice trembling slightly. But I can't pretend it's not happening. Hannah's pulse quickened, her eyes searching Olivia's for answers she wasn't sure she was ready to hear. Yet there was something disarming about Olivia's vulnerability, something that made it impossible to turn away. Olivia, Hannah began, her voice shaky, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Olivia replied quickly, her eyes glistening with a mix of hope and fear. Just tell me if I'm wrong. Hannah didn't move, didn't speak. Her silence was its own answer. The space between them dissolved as Olivia leaned in, her movements deliberate but careful, as if waiting for Hannah to pull away. Hannah didn't. When their lips met, it was soft at first, a tentative exploration of something fragile and new. But the kiss deepened, carrying the weight of unspoken truths and the tentative beginnings of promises neither was ready to articulate. Hannah's hand moved to Olivia's waist, steadying them both as her heart raced. The world seemed to tilt, the city lights around them dimming into nothingness as the kiss became their entire universe. When they finally broke apart, the air between them felt charged, humming with an energy neither could deny. Olivia's breathing was uneven, her hand still resting lightly on Hannah's shoulder. I don't know what comes next, Olivia confessed, her voice barely audible. Neither do I, Hannah admitted, a faint smile tugging at her lips. But maybe we don't have to figure it out all at once. They stood there for a moment longer, the sounds of Savannah's nightlife drifting up to meet them. Neither woman spoke, but the silence was no longer heavy with uncertainty. Instead, it was filled with something new, something hopeful. Hannah reached out, her fingers brushing against Olivia's hand. Olivia responded by entwining their fingers, holding on as if afraid to let go. The city lights shimmered around them, but it was the glow in each other's eyes that lit the path forward, however uncertain it might be. The days after the kiss were a whirlwind of emotions for both Hannah and Olivia. What had started as an unspoken connection had now taken a tangible, undeniable form. Yet that clarity brought as much fear as it did exhilaration. Hannah found herself replaying the moment on the balcony over and over, her fingers brushing her lips as if the memory of Olivia's kiss still lingered. But every time warmth surged through her chest, it was quickly followed by doubt. Her past heartbreak loomed like a shadow, whispering warnings about the dangers of letting herself feel again. For Olivia, the vulnerability was entirely new. She had spent years crafting a life where control was paramount. Every project meticulously planned, every aspect of her career executed with precision. Now for the first time something had slipped through her defenses. And it terrified her. Their dynamic shifted as if the air around them crackled with an unspoken tension. Each time Olivia visited the clinic to check on Max, their conversations danced on the edge of something deeper. Words felt heavier, glances lingered longer, and moments of silence carried a weight that neither dared to break. One evening, as Hannah prepared to close the clinic, Olivia arrived with coffee in hand. "I thought you might need this," Olivia said, holding out the cup. Hannah smiled, her heart fluttering despite herself. "You're becoming dangerously thoughtful," she teased, trying to keep the moment light. "Is that a bad thing?" Olivia asked, her eyes soft but searching. "Not necessarily," Hannah replied, her voice quieter now. Their fingers brushed as Hannah took the cup, the brief contact enough to send a shiver through both of them. But the idyllic pull between them was soon disrupted when Hannah stumbled upon a document buried in Olivia's project portfolio. The folder had been left on the clinic counter, forgotten in the chaos of one of Max's follow-up visits. Curiosity got the better of Hannah, who opened it to find plans detailing the redevelopment of a local area. A project that would replace an old, beloved grove of oak trees with a modern recreational space. Her stomach dropped as she read the details. That grove was more than just trees to Hannah. It was a place where she had found solace after long days, where she walked Toby every weekend, and where she had watched countless sunsets that reminded her life could still be beautiful. The confrontation came later that evening when Olivia stopped by the clinic, her usual air of confidence masking any suspicion of what was to come. "Hey," Olivia began, her smile faltering when she saw the storm brewing in Hannah's eyes. "Is everything okay?" "No," Hannah said, holding up the document. "Why didn't you tell me about this?" Olivia frowned, stepping closer to examine the papers. Her expression shifted from confusion to realization and then to defensiveness. "Hannah, this is just one part of the project," Olivia began, her tone measured. "I didn't think. You didn't think I'd care?" Hannah interrupted, her voice rising. "That grove means something to me, Olivia. To a lot of people. It's not just some patch of land to bulldoze for a trendy park. It's not that simple," Olivia countered, her voice tightening. "This project is about revitalizing the area, making it accessible and useful for more people." Hannah scoffed, crossing her arms. "And in the process you destroy something irreplaceable. That grove is part of this community. It's alive in a way your concrete and steel never will be." The words cut deeper than Hannah intended, and Olivia's jaw tightened. "You think I don't understand that?" Olivia shot back. "Do you have any idea how much pressure I'm under to make this work? To balance everyone's needs while trying to do something good for this city?" Hannah shook her head, frustration bubbling over. "I thought you were different, Olivia. I thought you cared about more than just your deadlines and blueprints." Olivia's face fell, a flicker of hurt crossing her features. "That's not fair," she said quietly. "Neither is what you're doing," Hannah replied, her voice cracking as she turned away. The argument left them both reeling. Hannah spent the night tossing and turning, her mind racing with anger and regret. She hated the way her feelings for Olivia had left her so exposed, so vulnerable to disappointment. Olivia, on the other hand, stared at her laptop late into the night, her mind a tangle of frustration and self-doubt. The conversation replayed in her head, each of Hannah's words striking a chord she couldn't ignore. It wasn't just the grove or the project. It was the fear that Hannah's accusations might hold some truth. For the first time, Olivia wondered if the rigid walls she had built around her life were keeping her from seeing the bigger picture. And more importantly, from holding on to the one thing she didn't want to lose: Hannah. The tension between Hannah and Olivia hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. Days after their argument, the echoes of their words still rang in Hannah's mind, sharp and cutting. She busied herself at the clinic, focusing on patients and paperwork, but no amount of distraction could silence Olivia's voice or her own lingering guilt. For Olivia, the argument left her in turmoil. Hannah's accusation, "You don't even know me," stabbed at her insecurities. She had built her life on being perceived as competent, controlled, and unshakable. Yet in that moment she realized Hannah had seen straight through her. And it terrified her. Despite their distance, neither could completely sever the thread of connection. But it wasn't until Max's sudden illness that fate forced them to confront the divide. It was a rainy evening when Olivia burst into the clinic, her face pale and stricken with panic. She carried Max in her arms, his usually lively eyes dull and his breathing labored. "Hannah!" Olivia's voice cracked as she called out, her wet hair plastered to her face from the storm outside. Hannah appeared from the back room, her expression shifting from surprise to concern in an instant. "What happened?" she asked, rushing toward Olivia. "I don't know," Olivia said, her voice trembling. "He was fine this morning, but now he won't eat and he's barely moving." Hannah took Max from Olivia's arms with practiced care, cradling the dog as she examined him. "Okay, let's get him into the treatment room. Follow me." The clinic's fluorescent lights cast a harsh glow as Hannah worked, her focus razor-sharp. She listened to Max's heartbeat, checked his temperature and examined his gums, all while murmuring reassurances to Olivia. Hannah glanced up, her expression softening. "I'll do everything I can, Olivia. I promise." As the tests ran, the two women sat in the small waiting area, the hum of machines filling the silence. Olivia stared at the floor, her hands clasped tightly together. Hannah watched her from the corner of her eye, torn between wanting to comfort her and maintaining the guarded distance she had built after their fight. "I've never felt this helpless," Olivia admitted suddenly, her voice breaking the quiet. Hannah blinked, caught off guard by the confession. "Olivia, I know I'm not easy to understand," Olivia continued, her eyes glistening as she looked up. "But I do care, Hannah. About Max. About so many things I can't seem to get right." Hannah felt her defenses waver, her frustration softening as she saw the raw emotion in Olivia's eyes. This wasn't the cold, calculating woman she had accused Olivia of being. This was someone who was just as lost and uncertain as she was. The test results confirmed Hannah's initial suspicion. Max had contracted a mild but treatable infection. "He'll need antibiotics and some rest," Hannah explained as she administered the first dose. "But he'll pull through." Olivia exhaled a shaky breath, relief flooding her features. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with gratitude. "It's my job," Hannah replied, though her tone was gentler now. She handed Max back to Olivia, who cradled him as though he were the most precious thing in the world. Hannah hesitated before speaking again. "You really love him, don't you?" Olivia nodded, stroking Max's fur. "He's the first thing in a long time that's made me feel grounded." Hannah's heart ached at Olivia's vulnerability, a stark contrast to the polished, unshakable exterior she usually presented. She thought back to their argument, to the assumptions she had made, and realized how unfair she had been. "I might have been wrong about you," Hannah admitted quietly. Olivia looked up, her brow furrowing. "What do you mean?" "I thought you didn't care," Hannah said, her voice wavering. "That you were too focused on your work to see what really matters. But seeing you like this with Max, it's clear I was wrong." Olivia's eyes softened, her grip on Max tightening. "And I thought you saw me as just another outsider, someone who didn't belong here. I guess I was wrong too." The air between them shifted, the tension giving way to something unspoken but undeniable. As Olivia prepared to leave, Max nestled safely in her arms. She paused at the clinic door. "Hannah," she began, her voice hesitant. "Thank you. For everything." Hannah nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Take good care of him. And yourself." For the first time in days, They parted not with anger or misunderstanding, but with the faintest hint of hope. Olivia stood in the conference room, her hands clasped tightly in front of her as she addressed the board. The morning light filtered through the tall windows, casting sharp lines across the polished table where her colleagues sat, their expressions ranging from skepticism to outright disapproval. "I've made adjustments to the proposal," Olivia said firmly, projecting the confidence she had spent years perfecting. But her heart raced beneath her composed exterior. "This is highly irregular," one of the senior planners, Mr. Halliday, interjected, leaning back in his chair. "Preserving the grove cuts into the projected returns and complicates the timeline. Are you certain this is the right move?" "Yes," Olivia replied, her voice unwavering. "The grove isn't just a patch of land. It's part of the community's identity. Bulldozing it might meet our deadlines, but it would cost us something far greater. Trust?" The room fell silent. Olivia's words lingered in the air, bold and unexpected. "We're not here to make compromises for sentimentality," Halliday pressed, his tone sharp. "No," Olivia shot back, her tone steady but firm. "We're here to create something lasting. Something people can believe in. If that means taking a little more time, so be it. Because some things are worth the risk." The revised proposal passed, albeit narrowly. Olivia walked out of the meeting exhausted but resolute. She didn't care about the grumbles or the side eyes from her colleagues. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she had made a decision from her heart rather than her head. Later that evening, Olivia found herself at Hannah's clinic, the crisp plans tucked under her arm. The familiar scent of antiseptic and warm animal fur greeted her as she stepped inside. Hannah looked up from her desk, surprised to see Olivia but immediately attuned to the determined glint in her eyes. "What's this?" Hannah asked as Olivia handed her the documents. "Open it," Olivia said simply. Hannah hesitated, her fingers trembling slightly as she unfolded the plans. Her eyes scanned the new layout, her breath catching when she saw it. The grove, untouched, preserved right in the heart of the development. "You changed it," Hannah murmured, her voice filled with disbelief. "I did," Olivia replied, watching Hannah's reaction intently. "Because you were right. That place isn't just trees. It's memories. It's peace. It's you." Hannah's eyes brimmed with tears as she looked up at Olivia, her voice trembling. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Olivia said softly, stepping closer. "I just wanted you to know that I heard you. And I care. About you, about this place. About everything that matters to you." For the first time, Hannah allowed herself to truly see Olivia, not as the determined architect who had once seemed so distant, but as someone who had chosen to take a risk for something bigger than herself. Hannah closed the folder carefully, setting it aside as she took a deep breath. "Olivia," she began, her voice shaky, "I've spent so much time trying to protect myself. I thought that if I could just stay in control, I'd never get hurt again." Olivia's brows furrowed slightly, her gaze softening. "You don't have to do this alone, Hannah." "I know," Hannah said, her voice breaking slightly. "And that's what scares me. But the idea of losing you? That scares me more." Olivia's breath hitched, her usual composure crumbling as the words settled between them. "You won't lose me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm here, Hannah. For all of it. For as long as you'll have me." Hannah took a step closer, her hand reaching for Olivia's. Their fingers intertwined, the warmth of the gesture grounding them both. "I don't know where this will lead," Hannah admitted, her voice tinged with both hope and fear. "Neither do I," Olivia replied, her lips curving into a small, genuine smile. "But we'll figure it out. Together." The night ended not with grand declarations but with the quiet simplicity of two people finally letting down their walls. As they sat side by side in the clinic, watching Max doze peacefully in his crate, the weight of their unspoken fears began to lift. They didn't need answers that night. What mattered was the choice they had made, to try, to risk, to care. The afternoon sun filtered gently through the towering oak trees, casting dappled light onto the soft grass below. The grove, now safe from the bulldozers, was alive with its usual serene beauty. The rustle of leaves in the breeze, the distant chirping of birds, and the occasional playful bark from Max as he bounded through the clearing. Hannah spread out a quilted blanket on the grass, her hands smoothing the edges as Olivia approached with a wicker picnic basket in hand. "I didn't think I'd see you carrying something so quaint," Hannah teased, her lips curving into a playful smile. Olivia rolled her eyes with mock exasperation, setting the basket down. I'm full of surprises, aren't I? Hannah laughed softly, the sound warm and light. That you are. As they settled onto the blanket, the air between them was different. Lighter, freer, unburdened by the tension and misunderstandings that had once hung like a cloud over their interactions. Olivia handed Hannah a container of fresh fruit, her usual sleek and polished demeanor softened by the casual setting. You know, she began, her tone thoughtful, when I first came here I didn't think I'd stay long. Savannah felt like a detour, not a destination. And now? Hannah asked, popping a grape into her mouth. Olivia looked out across the grove, watching Max chase after a butterfly with single-minded determination. Her gaze softened and she turned back to Hannah. Now I can't imagine being anywhere else. Hannah's heart swelled at the words, but she played it cool, raising an eyebrow. Are you saying I converted you into a small-town person? Let's not get carried away, Olivia replied, smirking. But I think I've learned that there's more to life than deadlines and skyscrapers. They fell into a comfortable rhythm, talking about everything and nothing. Favorite childhood memories, the quirks of their respective careers, the way Max had somehow wormed his way into both their hearts. At one point, Hannah leaned back, propping herself up on her elbows as she gazed at the canopy of leaves above. It feels good to be here, she said softly, her voice almost lost in the gentle hum of nature around them. Olivia turned to her, her expression open and unguarded. You mean in the grove? No, Hannah replied, meeting her eyes. I mean here. With you. The simplicity of the statement struck Olivia more than any grand declaration could have. She reached out, her fingers brushing against Hannah's. I spent so much time running toward something, Olivia admitted. I thought success would make me happy, that if I worked hard enough I'd feel fulfilled. But then I met you. Hannah tilted her head, her brows knitting slightly. And, Olivia continued, a soft smile gracing her lips. You made me realize that what I was looking for wasn't out there. It was in moments like this. Slower, quieter moments. Moments where I actually feel connected. Hannah's chest tightened, a mix of joy and vulnerability washing over her. I never thought I'd be able to trust someone like this again, she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. But you've shown me that taking a risk doesn't always end in heartbreak. Olivia squeezed her hand gently. And you've shown me that slowing down doesn't mean losing momentum. Sometimes it's the only way to really see what matters. Max trotted over to them then, his tongue lolling out as he dropped a stick onto the blanket with an eager bark. Looks like someone wants attention, Hannah said with a laugh, picking up the stick and tossing it a short distance. Max bounded after it, his tail wagging furiously. Olivia watched him, her expression soft. He's like a metaphor for us, isn't he? Hannah chuckled. How so? Well, Olivia began, a playful glint in her eyes. He got hurt, he healed, and now he's thriving again. All it took was a little care and patience. Hannah smiled, leaning into Olivia's side. I like that. It's simple. Honest. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting the grove in a golden glow, their conversation turned to the future. What's next for us? Hannah asked, her voice tinged with both curiosity and hope. Olivia leaned back, her hand idly playing with a strand of Hannah's hair. I don't know exactly, she admitted. But I know it involves more of this. More of us. And definitely more of Mac. Hannah laughed, her heart feeling full. I think I can live with that. They sat in companionable silence, watching as Max settled onto the grass, his head resting on his paws. For the first time in a long time, neither woman felt the need to rush. The future, uncertain as it was, felt less daunting when they imagined it together. And as the last rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, they both silently thanked the twist of fate, or destiny, that had brought them to this moment. Hannah reached for Olivia's hand, their fingers intertwining as they exchanged a quiet, contented smile. Sometimes, Hannah said softly, the best plans are the ones you don't see coming. Olivia squeezed her hand gently, her gaze steady. And sometimes, she replied, the best people are the ones you never knew you needed. And with that they let the peacefulness of the grove envelop them, content to let life unfold at its own pace, one beautiful moment at a time.